out here just driving so I can get a glimpse of this super moon that's out tonight. The night is really beautiful. The weather is just peaceful and warm, and it's just perfect out here tonight. It's about 9 o'clock, about 6 minutes to 9 Central Standard Time here in Kansas City, and this beautiful super moon, which they said is going to be at its brightest about a half an hour, about 9:30 Central Standard Time, 10:30 East Coast time. Between 10:15 and 10:30, they said that the moon is going to be at its brightest. But it's out pretty big right now. I'm not in its view yet, but where is it at? There it is. It's up there. Where is it at? Can you see it? Look at that. Big old bright moon. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. These idiots like to run these lights, so I gotta drive defensively. But yeah, this is the super moon. I'm just out here. I didn't get to post my news yesterday, so I wanted to touch on some things that happened yesterday. I had made a video about that Pope, but that was one of the big stories that was out yesterday, is that Pope, on his final trip on his tour, the leg of his tour, he stopped in Singapore, and he talked to these kids from different religions, and there looked like it was a Hindu, like it was some Muslims, some Catholics, and different kids on a panel, and he addressed these kids because these kids were, they had different, various religious beliefs, and so this Pope told them that all religious paths lead to one God, which was a big lie. We all know that, especially Christians who know that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior and believe that He is, and knows that He is the one and only begotten Son of God. We know that that Pope just lied to those people, and that really upset me when he said that. So I'm like, he just lied to the whole world, because like I said, this Pope holds a lot of influence. You know, you got presidents and celebrities and stuff that go meet him. They go to the Vatican, they go to Rome to kiss his ring. So he holds a lot of weight in this world. You know, the Pope has a lot of influence over billions of people throughout the whole world. And he sat up there and told that lie to them kids, that they can practice any religion and it's going to lead them to God. And that is a straight up Antichrist statement if I ever heard one. It's the biggest lie ever spoke. But yeah, that was one of the things that happened yesterday. But then that pipeline, y'all, that oil fire at the oil plant in Houston. They talking about somebody drove a car in a building, and I'm not convinced that happened. That might have been a terrorist attack. I'm convinced that might have been a terrorist attack. I think something is fishy with that. Something's up with that. The whole dang on oil plant or whatever that is down in Houston. Now, I haven't checked an update on the news yet to see if it was out, but it knocked out a lot of power down there too, from what I understand. But yeah, that sounds fishy. That sounds like some type of domestic terrorist stuff going on, because you know we got some funk with Venezuela right now, because they took that president's jet. And then they got some Americans down there detained in Venezuela for trying to pull a failed coup. And like I said, I don't know. When them people went to Africa, went to Congo and tried to participate in a failed coup, and now they got they waiting on the death sentence. They got a death sentence. They went to court, military court down there in the Congo. And now there's 3 Americans. They got a death sentence. So I don't know what Venezuela gonna do with them 6 Americans down there that participated in the failed coup. They tried to overthrow the Venezuelan president, Maduro, I think his name is. Yeah, they tried to overthrow the president down there in Venezuela. So they locked up, detained down there now. Venezuela and the United States is funking over some stuff because they suspected Maduro of human trafficking. And the only thing he could be human trafficking is cartel members or terrorists, in my opinion. Because, they all come through Venezuela. A lot of them, they come through South America to get here. Chinese terrorists, all of them. They come through South America to get to America because they can't slip through Canada as easy as they can South America, because South America got a lot of corrupt governments down there in those countries. But they can pay them off and they smuggle them right up through the border. So, yeah. But what else? Oh yeah, they caught two 13-year-olds trying to plot to shoot up another school, and they managed to get them. Luckily, before anybody got hurt. And yeah. So this is getting bad, with the kids. The kid killers are getting younger and younger by the day. I tell you, it's just sad. But Israel, they are on an aggressive, strike. They're constantly striking. It's like every 2 hours, it seems like Israel is hitting Hezbollah and Hamas and amassing a lot of casualties. They are, being aggressive. They are just taking the war to them now. It's their war now, because Netanyahu said he's not letting up. See, Netanyahu is not like Zelensky. Zelensky takes orders from Biden and the UK, Starmer, and now Zelensky is a pushover. Netanyahu is not a pushover. And anyway, the street light is blinking. But anyway, Netanyahu is under the direct orders of God. He's under the direct control of God. That's the reason why Israel was able to pull off this whole beeper cyber attack the way they did. That was the most God can get gangster. He can get. Hey, that was the most gangster thing I ever heard of in my life. To blow, man, they remotely blew up those beepers. Hey, God ain't no joke. They gonna realize that. Don't play with God or God's people. Don't mess with them. But anyway, they are about to have an issue, I think, that's coming up now at the Temple Mount and the Western Wall, because a lot of the Jewish holidays are coming up. And Ben Gvir was saying that they want to do something at the Temple Mount and the Western Wall. And I'm hoping that, nothing happens. But the way this war is going, that's wishful thinking at this point. But yeah, it's a lot. Russia, they've suffered some serious blows too from Ukraine. So it's only a matter of time to where Putin is going to have his back against the wall, because those oligarchs are going to get sick and tired of this war. They say they're already tired of it, from what I understand, and from what's being reported in some media outlets, is that these oligarchs are wanting this war with Ukraine to wrap it up. So Putin is he's going to have to, put up or shut up. He's going to have to go ahead and get more aggressive and go ahead and end this war, because these oligarchs are running out of money. They're getting sanctioned in countries throughout the world, and they're just tired of it. They're ready for him to do something, make something happen, pretty much. Trump, that second assassination attempt, they are saying that this guy was pretty much a delusional left-wing nutcase. He was a very, at first he was a Trump supporter, I think, but then he started leaning over to the left and got to the point where he was an anti-Trump supporter, and he despised Trump so much to where he just, how some of these fools be thinking when they watch TV and having a couple of beers. They get to drinking, and then that news come on and Trump say something off the wall and stupid. They get mad. I ought to just gas up my truck and go down to Florida and kill, what. And they do it, and next thing you know, they on the news. So this guy, this Ryan Wesley Rout, whoever his name is, 58 years old enough to know better. Seemed like he made a good living for himself. They said he built tiny homes and lived in Hawaii and had a girlfriend and stuff. So it seemed like he had a pretty stable life. But he was delusional and wanted to go and try to fight the war with Ukraine or something. And he just popped up in Ukraine and because he had no military experience, they told him that they didn't need him to fight, in the war. So he started recruiting, recruiting soldiers for Ukraine, for the army. So yeah, he came back home, and I guess he got more delusional, and so he decided to go to Florida, West Palm Beach, and take a crack at Trump. But what they don't realize and they don't understand is that Trump is the Antichrist. And the Bible said that there are going to be many attempts on the life of the Antichrist that are going to be unsuccessful. And the only way that the Antichrist will get destroyed is through God is going to destroy him. Man, nobody's going to be successful in trying to kill the Antichrist. And the Bible did say that there are many Antichrists in the world. Like I told you, the Pope is one of them. He's a false prophet and an Antichrist. I also believe Trump is one of them. And so what Ryan Wesley Routh, I don't know what his religious beliefs are, what he believes in, but what they need to realize is that, one, Israel is not under the orders of America, the UK, NATO, or nobody else. They're under the direct order and leadership and control of the Lord and the Lord only. And he is going to be the one that's going to supernaturally deliver them out of the hands of their enemies and make them victorious, because they are God's chosen people, and that is the Holy Land where our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was born. So that's that on Israel. They're being attacked on every side, but their enemies will not prevail and will not be victorious in ganging up on this small country, because it is protected. It is divinely protected by God. What else happened yesterday? I think it was a couple of earthquakes happened, but I don't remember. I don't remember how intense they were or how strong they were, but I know there were a couple of earthquakes that happened. Those typhoons, Typhoon Babinka and Typhoon Yagi, are still, the death tolls are still rising. There are still a number of people missing. It's just a mess. It's the Typhoon Yagi over in the Philippines, Vietnam. There's 3 different, and Thailand, I believe, caused dozens of deaths. Hundreds of thousands of people displaced. Then Typhoon Babinka, it killed 6 people in the Philippines, but then it hit Shanghai. And Shanghai is like the largest city in China. Beijing is the capital, but Shanghai is the largest city, and it's the financial hub of China. And it has 23 million people. And Typhoon Babinka wreaked havoc over there in Shanghai. And that was, from my understanding, the strongest storm that they've had in Shanghai in almost 80 years. It's over 70 years, nearly 80 years, since 1947. That's the year my mom was born. And she would have been 77 this year. Yeah. So, yeah, let's pray for those people, man. Nigeria. There was the floods in Nigeria, in a state in Nigeria. What is it called? Maiduguri, I believe. I might be mispronouncing the name of the city. But there was a prison that flooded in Nigeria, and a wall collapsed because of the floods, and 300 prisoners escaped out into the community, and only about 7 have been apprehended so far. So, yeah, they have 300 prisoners from a medium security prison in Nigeria. Nearly 300 escaped from a prison because the prison flooded and a wall collapsed, and they were able to get out. Isn't that scary? So pray for the safety of the people in Nigeria. Well, that's about it. Yeah, it's just everywhere, all over. Nigeria has been just devastated by floods, with disease, with famine, with crime, with war, with everything. Nigeria, that's in Africa, period. You know, they got the Mpox outbreak, they got the cholera outbreak, they got the West Nile outbreak. Gaza's got the polio. Well, they've got all the kids vaccinated in Gaza. But the thing is now, they keep hitting the humanitarian aid delivery vehicles and convoys because Hezbollah and Hamas are using those humanitarian aid convoys as command centers. And once Israel gets intelligence that it is a command center, Hezbollah or Hamas soldiers are using it as a cover, as a disguise, so they attack. So that's what's happening. And also, y'all, they said Trump has got them people sending bomb threats to Springfield, Ohio, because of the comments that they made about him and Vance made about those Haitians down there kidnapping pets and geese and stuff and eating them and stuff. So now people are sending bomb threats to hospitals and schools and municipal office buildings down there. Up there in Springfield, Ohio. And now they said this second assassination attempt, they believe that was staged for Trump to get the heat off of him for making those threats and maybe inciting people to make bomb threats up there in Springfield, Ohio. Another thing, Trump said he was going to go to Venezuela too. Not Venezuela, go to Aurora to talk about the Venezuelan gangs. So y'all know that when Trump goes somewhere and he hype up his MAGA supporters and the KKK and the Proud Boys and stuff, he can get some stuff to jump off. He can get it crunk up in there. He can bring some smoke to a city. And Trump has been promising to do that. But he's doing more than Kamala's doing. Kamala's doing nothing. She has not stated no strategy on how she's going to handle this whole immigration migrant problem that's getting out of control, that has gotten out of control in America. So I said that my solution would be to any Republican, I don't care, or any politician, I don't care what party you're from, any mayor, any governor, if them migrants show up to your state, you do like Governor Abbott did, because he said he's expanding. He held a press conference yesterday and said that he's expanding his police force down there, his state troopers and stuff down there at that border to fight those Venezuelan gangs and to police that border better. Governor Abbott said he's vowed to do that because, Abbott, he ships them off to them sanctuary cities. Anytime those liberal Democrat governors and mayors talk about, they're welcome here, you know what? Governor Abbott ship them right up there. And then that's when the residents in the community start crying and complaining like, hey, we cannot accommodate all these people. So that's what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, and that's what's happening in Aurora, Colorado. You take a whole bus full of load of migrants. They took 20,000 Haitians and dumped them into a little small town of 60,000 people. And so there was cultural clashes and a tremendous strain on resources, crime increased, all kind of stuff happened up there, and it's taking place now in other cities as well. But my thing is, those politicians need to suffer the consequences behind their poor political decision making. They need to, every politician need to have a busload of migrants get dumped off in their communities where they live and work so that they can be personally and professionally affected by their lack of decision making and their poor decision making. They should not be able to escape the consequences of what they have done and have not done, and that what they can do. So the only way that they will be forced to do anything about the situation is if they have to deal with it in their own personal and professional lives. So dump them take them to Martha's Vineyard, take them to the Hamptons, take them to Washington, D.C., take them to every sanctuary city and dump them off there. But what's going to happen is in Chicago, because you have the black gang problem up there and the crime that was going crazy in Chicago before the migrant crisis, you have now made it worse. Because now it's going to be the migrant gangs and the black gangs up there killing each other. And they're going to mess around and have to put the National Guard up there in Chicago after a while. So... And like I said, I want to see all these white supremacist, right-wing militia people and all these gun-happy cops and stuff. I want to see them have the same smoke for these violent migrant gangs and these violent migrant criminals that they have for black people. America is watching some of its biggest cities: New York, Chicago, L.A., be just completely destroyed, because those are the three biggest cities in this country, and they are being destroyed by crime, poverty, corruption, just moral decay, period. And the Bible said that in Revelations that the world is going to watch, a major mighty city that was once mighty in the eyes of the world get destroyed, and we're watching that right now. So, like I said, it's only a matter of time. This migrant crisis is going to turn into a lot of it's a lot of civil unrest right now going on, and it's going to get worse if these politicians don't do something about this migrant crisis. But I say, make them feel the effects of their poor leadership. That's what I say do. Take the migrants to their neighborhoods. Let them dump them off into their neighborhood. Do just like Governor Greg Abbott down there in Texas is doing. Dump them off in their neighborhoods, in those wealthy areas. Don't dump them off in the inner city. Dump them off in the wealthy areas of these politicians that lead these sanctuary cities, and see how they like that.
On this final day in Singapore, September 13th, concluding his trip to Asia and the Pacific, Pope Francis spoke to young people at an interreligious gathering.
Tutte le religioni sono un cammino per arrivare a Dio.
Because every religion is a way to arrive at God.
Dirò una comparazione, sono come diverse lingue, diversi idiomi per arrivare lì.
Sort of a comparison, an example would be they're sort of like different languages in order to arrive at God.
Ma Dio è Dio per tutti.
But God is God for all.
E come Dio è Dio per tutti, noi siamo tutti figli di Dio.
And if God is God for all, then we're all sons and daughters of God.
Ma il mio Dio è più importante del tuo.
But my God is more important than your God.
È vero quello?
Is that true?
C'è un solo Dio lì. E noi sono idiomi, cammino, lingue per arrivare a Dio.
There's only one God, and each of us is a language, so to speak, in order to arrive at God.
Qualcuno è Sikh, qualcuno musulmano, qualcuno hindi, qualcuno cristiano, ma sono diversi cammini.
There are different paths.
Understood?
Israeli forces have again been targeting several areas across Gaza, killing at least 21 Palestinians since dawn. A house in Al-Nusayrat refugee camp in the center of the Strip was flattened during a raid which killed 10 people there. The Israeli military has also shelled areas in and around of Rafah in the south and Beit Hanun in the north. And there was also an Israeli airstrike on a bakery, which killed at least 6 Palestinians. 2 of the victims were children. The attack happened in a camp for displaced Palestinians west of Khan Yunis. And a witness says that an Israeli strike on Sheikh Radwan neighborhood in Gaza City felt like an earthquake. The early morning attack happened when people were asleep.
We were sitting at home and were surprised by a missile that fell on the area. It felt like an earthquake. The people here are trying to live and have nothing to do with anything. Children, young men and women were sitting in their homes. They were all martyred.
Al Jazeera's Tariq Abu Azoum joins us now live from Deir al-Balah. That's inside the Gaza Strip, the central part of the Strip. Tariq, tell us the headlines of the day for you, where you are.
Well, I'm right now in Deir al-Balah, where we are surrounded by a clear, staggering escalation by the Israeli military, specifically on the central area in the past couple of hours, where the Israeli fighter jets have hit a very densely populated residential building in Al-Nusayrat refugee camp. At least 3 Palestinians have been confirmed killed, while 14 others were wounded, and they were transferred both to Al-Awda and to Al-Aqsa Hospital to get medical treatment. As we continue to hear from medical sources, Cyril, that the death toll for the past 24 hours has surpassed 20 Palestinians being killed, while 76 others were wounded in light of the clear escalation and ramping up of military operations in the central areas and also in Zaytun neighborhood, where eyewitnesses confirmed that the Israeli military quadcopter drones alongside with artillery units continue to hit residential areas and to flatten complete residential squares that are too close to Netzarim corridor.
Tariq, how are Palestinians in Gaza reacting to the Israeli military's continued presence in both the Philadelphia and Netzarim corridors, the south and the center of the Strip?
We clearly understand as Palestinians that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that Israel will retain military control over both corridor, Netzarim and Philadelphia corridor, and said earlier that under any circumstances Israel will not withdraw from Netzarim and from Philadelphia corridor, and which right now are two main sticking points in terms to get a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel, and that in turn had triggered a great wave of skepticism among Palestinians about the possibility of them to move freely between Gaza's provinces, alongside with the possibility to leave the Strip for educational and medical purposes. And Palestinians here, as we've been hearing from them, they reject the Israeli presence inside Gaza, which will have a very devastating consequences in terms of the flow of aid, medical delegations, alongside with the necessity of rehabilitating the already fragile medical sector in Gaza, which requires a very immediate intervention by humanitarian international organizations. But with the Israeli control over two main borders, Rafah and Karem Abu Salam crossing borders, the situation is getting much more dire right now on the grounds here.
Tariq Abu Azoum reporting from Deir al-Balah. Thank you very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
We begin this morning with a Fox 10 News alert out of Texas. A pipeline fire is taking place there near Houston.
So Ron's got some live images and what you need to know this morning. Good morning, Ron.
All right, you guys, this is happening just outside of Houston in the community of LaPorte, Texas. Take a look at this massive fire that has been burning. Houston is really the kind of the center of the oil and gas industry in our country, and there is a facility in that area around LaPorte. These are live pictures from our sister station. We don't have any control over them, but at least they're widening out right now. You can see a little more as to what's going on. I am told that residents in the area are being told to brace for evacuations. There's several residences and businesses right in that area, as you can see. There is a nearby college, San Jacinto College, and students there had been told to shelter in place. I mean, this thing is burning so red hot right now that you can see the flames stretching, who knows, 100, maybe 200 or 300 feet into the air. It just looks like a continuous fireball. There are no reports of any fatalities or any injuries at this point. It does look as though they've got a number of ladder trucks that are on this, but for the most part, what they're trying to do is to protect these homes that are in that area from just this massive fire that is burning nearby. It's kind of a grassy area. It looks like maybe there have been some other fires that have sparked and not too far away. So they're going to do what they can to protect people's lives and property. But again, a pipeline fire burning outside of Houston. This would be to the east of, say, downtown Houston by about 15 miles or so in LaPorte, Texas. Any other developments, we'll let you know.
There's been new threats of violence in Springfield, Ohio, as former President Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance, continue to amplify the baseless conspiracy theories about Haitian immigrants eating pets. The city has seen multiple bomb threats against City Hall and local schools. The latest threat targeted Clark State College, which is now shutting all of its campuses this week and making classes remote. Our Nicole Killian is in Springfield with more.
This normally quiet town of roughly 60,000 residents still on edge since false claims about Haitian immigrants started online and were amplified by former President Donald Trump and his running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance.
If they just backed off their words a little bit, this could help our environment. This would help. We need help, not hate.
Springfield Mayor Rob Roos says his city is assessing security after members of the far-right group the Proud Boys were seen marching through the streets over the weekend. And a branch of the Ku Klux Klan spread leaflets with hateful messages. Bomb threats prompted lockdowns at 2 hospitals and shuttered events at the local campus of Wittenberg University, which will hold classes remotely today.
It's disappointing to have this national political rhetoric having an effect on, our 1,300 students. They didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for this.
I talked to a lot of people in Springfield. People are frustrated with the national media attention.
On Face the Nation, Vance condemned the threats of violence, but in a Sunday show blitz, he continued to defend the false claims.
But it wasn't just a meme.
I have to create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana.
How do you respond to that?
If any leader said exactly that, I would be concerned about the validity of what they're saying. I don't understand why the statement was made in that way. It confuses me.
If you could speak to the former president or the senator right now, what would you tell them?
We'd ask that you would listen to what the local leadership is saying about these baseless claims, and they're just not true.
All right, so for more on what's going on in Springfield, I want to bring in Rona Tarrant. She is the executive editor of CBS News Confirmed. Rona, thanks for joining us. Let us start with what we saw in Nicole's story about Ku Klux Klan, the Proud Boys. What's been going on there?
So there have been reports of at least 2 far-right groups in Springfield over the weekend. The first, the Proud Boys, who people might remember were involved in January 6th. So a small group of Proud Boys were in Springfield over the weekend. They were waving flags, they were holding signs, making reference to those claims about pet eating. We spoke to some locals who took photos and videos. They were just generally dismayed that they were in the city. The second, we spoke to a local pastor and a local city official. They received reports that a branch of the Ku Klux Klan was leaving flyers in the city calling for mass deportations. Now, I actually looked into this group that were named on the flyer. They've been spreading propaganda around Ohio for at least a year, as well as in other states, in Kentucky, in Indiana. So they're sort of looking to exploit the situation in Springfield and spread this message.
Right, and we should just point out that most of the Haitians that are there legally.
Correct.
This is not about illegal migration. So is these claims of pet eating, now this sort of stuff is spread to Dayton? This is like sort of metastasizing.
There was a new claim over the weekend from Dayton, which claimed that African immigrants were seen putting cat carcasses on a grill. Now, this actually was from 2023. So it was a video that was released in 2023 where a man said that he believed there were cat carcasses on a grill. Now, we actually tracked down this man. We confirmed he does live in Dayton, and that he did genuinely believe these are cat carcasses. However, there is no proof that these are cats, and as many people pointing out, it could be chicken, it could be some other kind of animal. Now, police and city officials were very quick to come out on this. They said they have received absolutely no reports and there is no credibility to these claims. They have also said they've called the allegations irresponsible.
Wow, you guys do such great work, and I hope that we can have you on over and over and over again. Thank you very much.
Today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott making a border security announcement in Houston, discussing the ongoing border security efforts, calling the Biden-Harris administration policies reckless, and also calling out the Tren de Aragua gang. Let's bring in News Nation's border correspondent, Allie Bradley, who is live with more. Allie, what else did the governor outline today?
Yeah, hey, Nicole, a big one here from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He actually is designating Tren de Aragua, or the Venezuelan gang that is making headlines, as a foreign terrorist organization, saying that the state is going to use the power of the courts to halt their operations, and they're actually going to use asset forfeiture to go after their assets, to seize their goods and their belongings, also adding that they are going to do what they can to keep these individuals in jail longer. Now, when asked why now, why the governor is making this move now, 3.5 years into this crisis that he's been very vocal about, he says it's because of the uptick in crime that we have been seeing involving these gang members. Now, he specifically cited instances at the El Paso hotel called the Gateway Hotel, which is now closed down. But last week, the county attorney bringing forward an injunction on that hotel, saying that there was gang activity there and problems there, including what they believe to be a prostitution ring. Now, the governor saying that they went in there and performed operations and actually arrested 20 suspected Tren de Aragua members in that operation as that hotel was being closed down. Now, when it comes to what they're going to be doing now, of course, they have these operations where they are working with their anti-gang units. Now, when Governor Greg Abbott first took office, there was only one anti-gang unit in the state. He is now touting that they are expanding to at least 9. Take a listen to what the governor had to say about that move.
I signed laws that provide more than $100 million to support these anti-gang centers over just the next 2 years. But to more directly target TDA, I directed DPS to elevate TDA to a Tier 1 gang, the worst of the worst.
Okay, so it is going to be a state, local, and federal effort here, Nicole. He's saying that Texas DPS is actually going to be working in a collaborative effort to create a database, saying that the biggest issue that they're facing right now when it comes to these TDA members is that they really don't have a way to identify them. We know that is an issue in the vetting process. So they're saying right now they're going to take what they know. They're going to take those identifiers, the tattoos, the military-age men, the clothing that they might be wearing, and match that up with what they found in other areas where these gang members have been present. So that is what they're going to be focusing on right now. These are those anti-gang centers that are present right now across Texas that he says are going to be ramping up. They're going to be beefing up resources and support there to go after these gang members to stop them from getting a stronghold in the state. Because Nicole, the governor, says that they have seen the kind of beginning stages of this gang setting up shop in Texas, saying that they come in with these 18 to 25-year-old men and they expand. They work with what they can and they make those expansions. So again, they closed down the Gateway Hotel following that injunction. Now they're designating Tren de Aragua, that Venezuelan gang, as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, it's important to know one of the reasons why we've heard so much about TDA and why we know about TDA, Nicole, is that they were involved in the assault of New York police officers. They were also involved. The brother was directly connected to Tren de Aragua in the killing of Laken Riley. So we have seen several instances crop up as of late involving this gang. And the governor said enough is enough. You're looking at images from the Gateway Hotel. That hotel, again, has since been shut down after being condemned and an injunction brought forward because of gang activity. They had several El Paso police officers go in there and report that they had interactions with suspected TDA members as well. Governor Greg Abbott and Dallas police also confirming that in Dallas, the gang is present there as well, Nicole. So they have a lot of work to do if they want to get this gang under control in the state. Nicole.
All right. Yeah. Allie Bradley live with that announcement today from the governor. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous.
One of the hottest issues during last night's debate was immigration, and it's a topic that has had a big impact on us, of course, here in Chicago. More than 47,000 migrants have arrived here since 2022. But next month, Chicago will be closing down 3 of its migrant shelters. That move is coming as fewer people are crossing the southern border following an executive order that limits the amount of people who can ask for asylum each day. And the buses from Texas coming here are also slowing down. NBC5's Courtney Sisk is sharing more of these details.
A year ago, it was all hands on deck.
Last October, there were nearly 12,000 migrants in city shelters, while 3,000 more slept on Chicago police station floors and at O'Hare Airport.
This was never a long-term solution. Those shelters were always going to be temporary shelters.
Paula Jean is the co-founder of a grassroots organization, Chicago for All, which helps new arrivals adjust to life in Chicago. She says today it's a much different picture. The city now has 5,000 open beds across shelters and will close down 3 facilities next month. One of the shelters set to close in October is the Pilsen shelter here on South Halstead Avenue, a site that's been criticized in the past. 5-year-old Jean Carlos Martinez Rivero died there in December. The medical examiner's report determined it was from sepsis caused by strep. He also had 2 viral infections, including COVID. The other 2 shelters set to close are in Westtown on Ogden Avenue and Kenwood off Lakeshore Drive. All current shelter residents at the 3 locations will be relocated to another facility. The move still leaves nearly 2,000 beds open in case of another surge.
Consolidation promotes efficiency. Consolidation reduces costs.
The city spent at least $464 million on the migrant crisis since 2022. And while Latino policy Forum's Sylvia Puente says this is a step in the right direction. There are still details she's concerned with.
Of those that are in the 3 shelters, that are the families that are being moved, what happens to their children in terms of their schools and education?
Hendy Mendoza at the Pilsen shelter shares similar concerns as a mother of 2. The children, where are they going to go? It's going to get cold. If the shelter is not far, how long are we going to be from the shelter to school? The city says it's coordinating with CPS to minimize disruptions. In Pilsen, Courtney Sisk, NBC 5 News.
Many residents are leaving New York City as more migrants arrive, adding to the strain on the city's housing and services. Since 2022, over 186,000 migrants have come to NYC, with about 64,000 currently staying in shelters.
But before we dive in, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest updates. Let's focus on the details here.
On the other side, crime committed by migrants, including last week's alleged subway mugging involving an 11-year-old Venezuelan boy, and general riots, New York City are really getting out of hand. Ex-Gov. David Paterson said, "You just hear these situations you've never heard of before," the Democratic former Gov said on 770 WABC's The Cats Roundtable radio program. Last Tuesday, there was an 11-year-old kid who mugged a woman on the 7 train. The small fry suspect has been linked to a string of robberies in Central Park as well, police said. The first thing that people notice is that this is a migrant. It's the product of a bunch of people being sent here without the city having any time to adjust to it, Paterson told host John Katzimatis. "It's just not going to work, it's too many people. Not every migrant is a criminal," the ex-governor said. But a sizable number of people are acting in this kind of anti-cultural fashion, and all it's doing is alienating the immigrant citizens who live in the city who try to make the city as great as it is. The city has spent about $5.5 billion to shelter and care for the flood of migrants who have arrived here since 2022. The cost of providing shelter and other assistance to arriving migrants in New York is now in the billions of dollars. Other cities, notably Chicago and Denver, are facing similar challenges. But the crisis is particularly acute in New York. Mayor Eric Adams has said, quote, "This issue will destroy New York City."
The federal government is cutting the city of LA a check for nearly $22 million to help house migrants. The city has made itself a sanctuary for migrants arriving in the country, but has had a tough time finding them homes. Many have been set up at the Union Rescue Mission on Skid Row, while others have pitched tents on sidewalks. The Department of Homeland Security's check is part of a $380 million fund to provide shelter for the less fortunate across the country.
Hundreds of illegal Venezuelan migrants may be showing up to your doorstep, literally. The Daily Mail finding these illegals are working as food delivery drivers using false accounts on DoorDash and Uber Eats. Many find the accounts for sale on places like Facebook, some being sold for $150 a week or $900 outright. Migrants in Texas telling the Daily Mail it's the fastest way for them to make a buck after they cross into the country illegally. And Uber says all couriers who deliver with Uber are required to hold a valid right to work in the U.S., pass a criminal background check, and be over the age of 18. Our community guidelines explicitly prohibit account sharing, and it's something we take very seriously. Both apps have safeguards in place, including re-verification processes and real-time IDing, but it's pretty simple to buy a real account on social media.
Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday. End of the weekend is upon us. Got a rather large earthquake coming in here to the western area of Canada, northern end of the Cascadia subduction zone, showing a large earthquake here at about 3:31 p.m., September 15, 2024. Look at that seismograph station there. Many seismograph stations picking up that large earthquake. A 6.6 earthquake here in the Queen Charlotte Sound area, about 20 miles deep here into the northern end, extreme northern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. Very interesting earthquake coming in right now to the Queen Charlotte Sound area. I don't think we're going to see any tsunami statement. Let me double check, though, see what we have here for this earthquake. As of right now, no tsunami warning, advisory, watch, or threat from this 6.6 earthquake in the Queen Charlotte Islands area. Goodness. Fairly large earthquake coming in here for sure. Just getting all sorts of earthquake alerts right now. This is being reported by the USGS and also the EMSC as a 6.6. And let's see if this has been reviewed or not. It has been reviewed by a seismologist. It is in a zone that has seen, have seen a little bit of earthquake activity out here. Obviously, the plate boundary have seen a little bit of earthquake activity out there in the large range. This earthquake striking right here, a little bit further east here compared to historical data. But goodness, that's a fairly large earthquake. A ways from, I don't know about any populated densities out here. Looks like maybe a considerable distance from any specific main large city, but I'm sure they felt it locally out here across this area. Not for sure what's all out here, but I'm sure there's a little bit of human activity out here. Anyway, 6.6 earthquake. Goodness, we'll have to watch the West Coast here. Got a lot going on. Seismograph stations there showing the P wave all over the place. Even Southern California picking up that P wave. There was actually, look at this. This is rather interesting here. Petrolia, this station right here is actually down in Northern California, right? See this? This earthquake struck just moments, literally 5 minutes prior to this earthquake, the 6.6 here. Now, they are somewhat along the same area. We got the southern end of the Cascadia, and this earthquake striking at the northern end. It's kind of odd just to see an individual earthquake there followed by a larger movement quake thousands of miles away here, but on the same plate boundary. Goodness. All right, we'll keep an eye there on Southern California. We'll cover this and more later on this evening, folks, unless something major happens. Looks like a little bit of earthquake activity there across South Carolina as well in the last half hour. So things are getting very active out here. We'll see you guys back here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Stay safe out there.
The paraphernalia of a would-be assassin. These are the photos released by the FBI of 2 backpacks, a GoPro camera and an AK-style rifle found propped up against the fence on the outside of Donald Trump's golf course in Florida. And this is the suspect, a 58-year-old man named Ryan Wesley Routh, who has now been charged with 2 federal gun crimes in what the FBI believed was an apparent attempt to assassinate the former president as he played golf with a friend around 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. This is Donald Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach here in Florida, where he was playing around with a financial donor friend yesterday when a gunman came within a couple of 100 yards of being able to shoot him. Donald Trump did escape uninjured, but what happened here yesterday is nothing short of incredulous, given it was the second assassination attempt on his life in just over 2 months, and comes just under 2 months before November's election, where he is running to be president. If the atmosphere between the pro and anti-Trump camps was fraught before, then this surely will up the ante further still. Here's what we know so far. This visualization on the golf course's website shows where the attempt on the former president's life became apparent, between the 5th and 6th hole, when one of his Secret Service agents, who'd gone ahead to make sure the path was clear, spotted the barrel of a rifle poking through the bushes on the perimeter fence of the golf course. The agent immediately fired shots towards the person holding the firearm, who fled in his car along the I-95 highway. The entire area was locked down and Mr. Trump taken to safety inside. The local Palm Beach County Sheriff said a witness immediately came forward.
Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tag, which was great.
The car in question was pulled over at a traffic stop some 45 miles up the highway and the man inside detained. Soon, the former president's motorcade was seen travelling back to his Mar-a-Lago resort about 10 minutes away, and shortly after, Mr. Trump issued a characteristically defiant statement. There were gunshots in my vicinity, but before rumours start spiralling out of control, I wanted you to hear this first. I am safe and well. Nothing will slow me down. I will never surrender. The sentiment exactly the same as when the former president was shot at on July the 13th during a rally in Pennsylvania, when he famously emerged with a bloodied ear and a defiant fist in the air, mouthing the words, "Fight, fight, fight." As they did then, Republicans have quickly rallied round the former president. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who was on his way to Mar-a-Lago at the time of the incident yesterday, praised the former president as unstoppable. The attack was also quickly condemned by his presidential rival, Kamala Harris, who said she was glad Trump was safe and said the incident must not lead to more violence. But politicians, including President Biden, have raised questions about the Secret Service, still reeling from its failure to prevent the previous assassination attempt.
Thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help.
Whether it gets that extra funding, the question remains how Ryan Wesley Routh, a troubled man seen here in Ukraine, managed to get within a couple of 100 yards of the former president with a rifle outside a golf course where court documents allege he spent 12 hours before being confronted. All the more alarming since Routh had a long history of criminal charges, including one for barricading himself in a building in 2002 with a machine gun over a traffic stop. Routh had been critical of Donald Trump on social media, even though he had voted for the former president in 2016. The suspect appeared in court this morning, where he was charged with 2 federal counts of possessing a firearm as a felon and possessing a firearm with an obliterated serial number. This assassination attempt now contained. But in a presidential campaign as divisive as this, with a country as on edge, keeping both candidates protected has overnight become an even bigger challenge.
Well, in the last hour or so, body cam footage of the moment that the suspect was hauled from his car and arrested has been released. He's been charged, as we said, with 2 counts, but it is very likely that more charges will be added in the days and weeks as the investigation continues. It might be difficult, though, for the FBI to charge Mr. Routh with any form of attempted assassination against President Trump, because it appears not only was he several hundred yards away from the former president, but he doesn't seem to have taken any shots, at least none that the FBI have told us about. It is very unlikely, though, that he will make bail at his hearing next Monday, because he will likely be deemed a flight risk and a danger to the community.
And Siobhan, tell us what's being said about possible motive.
Well, not much at the moment. You mentioned Ukraine there earlier, but it is not clear why this man would have wanted to shoot President Trump. He had reportedly recently written on his Twitter account that democracy is on the ballot in the November election, echoing very much what the president and the vice president say. That is clearly what Donald Trump believes. He chimed in today, was quoted on the Fox News website, blaming the president and the vice president for the second assassination attempt, saying that because of their rhetoric, he said, the bullets are flying and it will only get worse. I think there is a very real fear that all this could lead to an uptick in political violence, not just on a local level, but also potentially against both candidates as they crisscross their way around America, campaigning between now and November.
Siobhan Kennedy. Well, joining me now from Princeton College is an award-winning American journalist and visiting senior editor at The Economist, Steve Coll. I mean, it does seem that political violence is now one of the defining features of this campaign.
I think you're right. It has been a long time, since 1968, that we've had such active assassination attempts during a presidential campaign, and the atmosphere, of course, is quite heated. On both sides, the candidates and their followers believe that a victory by their opponent poses an existential threat to American democracy or our way of life. And that kind of language has been around for a long while. Of course, in calmer times, America is plagued by assassination attempts against presidential candidates and other politicians. There's been a massive increase in investment in the Secret Service, and yet, as we've seen just this morning with President Biden's comments, the capacity of the service to deal with all these threats is still short of their scale.
The first assassination attempt on Donald Trump didn't seem to last as a sort of either a media story or a campaign feature. It was sort of almost all over in 5 days as his ear healed. Now, what do you think happens with this second apparent attempt?
Well, as you say, there was a rallying effect around President Trump among his supporters, and they're competing. President Trump and Vice President Harris, they're competing for what is at this point a pretty small sliver of genuinely undecided voters who will actually turn up at the polls. And I think these are voters who tend to pay attention late in a campaign. And if there's another rallying effect around President Trump, if he's seen as determined and defiant and sort of able to cheat death, maybe that will attract some of these undecideds. But I think a lot of the electorate is pretty locked into their positions. The danger is that their competition and the heated intensity of it is going to invite more people into the public square with guns and rifles. As you know, guns are ubiquitous in the United States. I think our ratio of unsettled, troubled people prone to violence may not be higher than that of other rich societies, but the easy access to gun makes all kinds of people potentially dangerous, especially down the stretch of a campaign like this one.
It's also interesting seeing how Donald Trump calibrates his messages to different audiences. If you look on X or Twitter, in the last hour, he's been talking about the difficulties of talking to his grandchildren about attempts on his life. If you look on Truth Social, where the real diehards are, he talks about the rhetoric and lies of Comrade Kamala Harris, talks about the communist left rhetoric, the bullets are flying and it will only get worse. If this is down to a very small number of people deciding how they're going to vote at the beginning of November, do you think any of these messages reach them?
I think Donald Trump is a very intuitive and also a very effective communicator. And he is, a performer who has a sense of how to communicate simultaneously to different audiences. And you've pointed it out. I think being shot at and missed is a human experience, and his own kind of vulnerability after the attack in July was part of what created the rallying effect, the bandage on his ear, and his own kind of slightly being a little bit unsettled by being shot at and having such a close call. This time around, it wasn't quite as vivid an attack, and I'm not even sure that the man under arrest got a shot off, but he has learned how to communicate successfully about his own vulnerability, and his supporters have created a narrative of martyrdom that reinforces their message that there is something special about Donald Trump's calling as a leader in the United States, and that more people should follow him. And the United States has a very deep spiritual and religious tradition, and a lot of Trump's followers are not hesitant to compare him to Jesus Christ, sort of on the cross and suffering for the good of his following. And some of us may not connect with that message, but a lot of Americans do.
Steve Cole, thank you very much indeed.
Prison authorities in Nigeria said on Sunday that 281 inmates had escaped after devastating floods in the country's northeast collapsed the walls of a jail early last week. 7 of the escaped prisoners from the medium security custodial center in Maiduguri have been recaptured, a spokesperson for the Nigeria Correctional Services said in a statement. Umar Abubakar said operations were underway to find the rest. Maiduguri is the capital of Borno State, which early last week suffered its worst floods in decades after a dam overflowed following heavy rains. At least 30 people have been killed, according to Nigeria's emergency agency. Around 1 million have been affected, including hundreds of thousands of people forced into displacement camps.
Now let's turn our attention to China. This morning, Typhoon Bebinca made a landfall in Shanghai. This is the strongest storm to hit China's financial capital in more than 7 decades. It comes just as the country is recovering from another typhoon, Typhoon Yagi, which left a trail of destruction as it passed through China earlier this month. Yagi is Asia's most powerful storm this year. Apart from China, it has devastated Vietnam, Laos and the Philippines. And now it is wreaking havoc in Myanmar. But the death toll has crossed 100, by the way, and storms, in fact, are not limited to Asia. Storm Boris is battering Central and Eastern Europe. At least 8 people have died. Across the world, storms are becoming stronger and more frequent. Our next story tells you why.
Trees toppled. Vehicles and homes battered. Streets flooded. This is Shanghai, the financial hub of China, which has come to a standstill. This morning, Typhoon Bebinca made landfall in Shanghai. Bebinca is the strongest storm to hit the city in 75 years. More than 400,000 residents have been evacuated. Hundreds of flights have been cancelled. Train services are shut. Highways are closed. But Shanghai's 25 million residents are not the only victims of Bebinca. The typhoon has already passed through Japan and the Philippines, where 6 people were killed. And now the typhoon is wreaking havoc in China, as the country is still recovering from another storm, Typhoon Yagi, the most powerful storm in Asia this year. Yagi passed through China this month. It killed at least 4 people and injured at least 95 others. Apart from China, Yagi has swept through Vietnam, Laos and the Philippines, where it proved devastating. Yagi caused severe flooding and in total killed at least 287 people. That is, until now. The storm has reached Myanmar. The death toll has risen by 113. At least 320,000 people have been displaced. 64 people are missing. Additionally, 66,000 houses and 375 schools have been destroyed. Several kilometers of roads have been washed away. Now, countries are pouring in aid. India has launched Operation Sadbhav, meaning goodwill, to send urgent supplies to Vietnam, Laos and Myanmar. India has pledged $1 million in aid. The UK has pledged $1.3 million. And Japan has provided $124,000 in aid. While Asia suffers from devastating storms, the disaster is not limited to the continent. Storm Boris is lashing Central and Eastern Europe. Austria, Poland, Romania and the Czech Republic are affected. 8 people have drowned. Hundreds of thousands of households are affected. Power outages are frequent and entire bridges have been swept away. No matter the country, climate change is making disasters worse, including storms like typhoons.
There is general consensus amongst the scientists that tropical cyclones are getting more intense, that tropical cyclones are getting wetter, that storm surges are increasing, which is due to the combination of the cyclone being more intense and sea level rise. So those are 3 factors that we generally agree on.
Typhoons are rare in regions like Shanghai, but that's where Bebinca made landfall. And in places where typhoons are normal, they are only becoming more intense.
This is due to a meteorological fact, a meteorological principle, which is that warm air can hold more moisture. So as the atmosphere is getting warmer, the typhoons in themselves are also getting wetter, so they can bring more rain when they make landfall. So those rainfall totals that you see in Yagi, which are exceeding 400 millimeters, chances are that we're going to see those rainfall totals more often in the future.
Natural disasters are causing widespread destruction, and people are paying the price of climate change with their lives.
New at noon, after 2 earthquakes over the weekend, another South Carolina quake was hit the state. South Carolina emergency management officials say that a magnitude 2.2 earthquake hit early this morning. The USGS confirmed it was centered nearly 4.5 miles southeast of Pageland. Over the weekend, 2 other earthquakes were reported. Officials say a magnitude 2.1 happened on Saturday near Elgin. Then on Sunday, USGS officials say a magnitude 2.7 earthquake happened around that same area.
Good morning to you. I'm Lynette Romero.
And I'm Adrian Arambula, and we're going to check in with meteorologist David Bigger. David, we've got another earthquake. Right when our nerves were kind of calmed after last week's multiple earthquakes in the Malibu area, we're hearing about another one.
Yeah, so this is likely another aftershock. It's a 3.6. It happened just over 8 minutes ago, right here in this area. And this is looking probably pretty familiar to you if you were keeping track of some of the earthquakes toward the end of last week, because this is essentially where the earthquake was and where most of the aftershocks have been. And a reminder, we'll continue to see some aftershocks up to and even including sometimes the magnitude of the original quake. So we'll continue to monitor this. And this was felt across some parts of the region, but it looks like it's all relatively weak shaking intensity.